I'd like to make a suggestion for those that find themselves uh, having compulsive behaviors in any form. And I'm here talking about addiction. And what I've noticed is sometimes the worst addictions that are present in our lives are the ones that are normalized, the ones that everyone else doesn't bat an eye for it. But you know deep down that I'd be better if I didn't have this in my life. I'd be better with less binges with this addiction. I'd be better if I use that time I've spent towards this addiction or this vice towards something more productive, more building myself, more investing in myself. I noticed for myself, I would have a pretty severe problem of addiction to media. And really, if I look at my entire life history, that's the story of my life. I thought of myself as some sort of guy that was sober because I didn't partake in any drugs or alcohol or I didn't do, partying or I this or that. Like I just wasn't addicted to, let's say, what society will conventionally call an addiction or qualify as an addiction. But it turns out there's a couple great definitions of addiction, and I want to share them with you, and to see and contrast with your behaviors to see like, is this behavior actually an addiction or not? Oftentimes we will label like, well, this is an addiction, for this person. Let's say it's someone drinking alcohol because they they drove their car into a children's birthday party and killed two kids, while completely blistering drunk. Um, True story, by the way, that actually happened. For that person, you'd be like, oh yeah, clearly that person is a severe alcoholic. And it's funny, to that person, they didn't consider themselves an alcoholic. Of course, of course. We only really consider things in our lives addictions when they're hurting us badly enough. It's like the fable or the story of a dog sitting on the nail. So then I'll share that story and then I'll get to my definitions on addiction. So the dog sitting on the nail, right? There's a market, and there is a guy walks up, to a shopkeeper in a market, and he asks about this dog that he sees on the side of the street, and he's just, it's a street dog, and he's just whimpering and sad, and he's kind of yelping a little bit, every now and then, and the guy asks the shopkeeper, like, hey, why is this dog like whimpering, like what's going on? He's like, and the shopkeeper's like, oh, he's sitting on a nail. And the man is like, what, like he's sitting on a nail, like uh what, like isn't that hurting him? And the shopkeeper's like, yeah, it's hurting him. And the man replies like, so it's hurting him and he's not getting off of it, like he's sitting on a nail, like he knows he's sitting on a nail, why isn't he getting up? Why isn't the dog moving? Why isn't the dog sitting up? And the shopkeeper replies, he's not moving because the nail isn't hurting him enough. How many times in our lives do we sit on nails, and we keep on sitting on nails because we do not hurt enough? Do we have to kill someone to admit to ourselves that a compulsive behavior as an addiction? Do we have to miss our the birth of our daughter to admit that we have an addiction? Do we have to fail our next test or our semester to admit that we have an addiction? Where do you draw the line? Can you just draw the line of addiction at, hey, you know what? Like, I spent way more time doing that thing than I wanted to, and therefore that is now impacting me negatively. So here's now my definitions that I'd like to share with you around addiction, where an addiction is a compulsive behavior that produces more harm than good. It nets more harm, nets more distraction, time is net wasted relative to the time invested. A beautiful barometer for addiction is, can you go without it for 2 weeks and not think about it? If you're really addicted to something, you're going to be thinking about it, you're going to be craving it, even if you can go away from it. Any addict, even to the most hardest drugs, can go clean off of their drug of choice. Anyone can do it for 2 weeks, right? But during those 2 weeks, what is your mind doing? Is your mind craving that high? Is your mind craving that satisfaction, that release? Notice that you're looking for something outside of yourself to give you that. And this is all what I've just said is to just say, if you've noticed yourself having any compulsive behaviors, whether it is to media addiction, pornography, masturbation, alcohol, if, like with alcohol, right? If you've had maybe one too many nights where you're like, you know what, that wasn't a productive night, because I drank that night, or like, you know what, like with marijuana. Marijuana is an interesting one because it's legalized here in Canada, and therefore there's going to be a lot more rationalization around addiction to marijuana, and where you're using it every day, and you're using it to you will inevitably use it to suppress emotionally difficult difficult emotions. You will use it to suppress to numb or to avoid or evade difficult emotions, to evade difficult truths. And so, if there's, maybe you're not, killing kids at a birthday party yet, and maybe you're not missing the birth of your daughter. Maybe you're not wasting so much time that you can't, you fail a project in school. Maybe you're not there yet in terms of the severity of addiction or the severity of the compulsive behavior. But I want you to open your mind to this possibility. If you notice any behavior in yourself that has been more compulsive than you would have hoped, something more compulsive than you're like, you know what, I'd do better if I wasn't that compulsive with that behavior. Attend an AA meeting. Attend a meeting. So if with alcohol, right, obviously Alcoholics Anonymous. With media addiction, there's MAA, Media Addictions Anonymous, or there's various other meetings. It doesn't have to be AA. Oftentimes AA can be corrupted with the focus being around a religion. People have had that criticism, and whereas like other AA groups recognize that God exists outside of religion, if that's not obvious, and so if you can't find the group that is a fitting, I'm not saying that you would attend every week, but like give yourself a few sessions, just like attending some of these meetings, seeing people share their stories, seeing how much addiction has wrapped them up in life, like how much addiction has completely ruined their life, where they have no control anymore. For me, one of the biggest deterrents for re-engaging with a media addiction has been attending one meeting is of seeing people who are like, I can't, I can't even walk without media in my ears. I can't walk without listening to something. I can't, eat without listening to something, right? It's like I was like, oh wow, like that is something I have completely related to. And you may realize like, oh shit, I'm more of an addict than I initially thought. And with that can be liberating, because then now you have a little bit of a story. Maybe you have a little bit more of a motivation. It's like, you know what? I'm going to make my life more conscious. I'm going to be more conscious around my relationship to media, or for another individual, I'm going to be more conscious with my relationship to this substance use, uh, whether it's with alcohol or marijuana or whatever, right? I'm going to be more conscious maybe with my relationship with gambling, uh, to actually get in the perspective of where it goes too far for people can be a beautiful, sobering experience, to actually see how bad it can get. It can help you question with yourself, because if you are developing more and more in that area, like towards that trend of having an addiction in that area, you're basically getting a snapshot into what you'd look like in 20 years from now if you didn't continue to if you continued on with this pattern. And because what you focus on will grow, so obviously this pattern will grow. And it reminds me of a beautiful exercise to let go of addictions, where you visualize 20 years from now, all the pain and suffering that you will have caused for yourself for that addiction. And you can make the decision to let it go and drop it now. So, yeah, that was a very sobering experience for me to genuinely be like, you know what? Like, fuck, like this is a problem. Like, I do not have control anymore. Right? A lot of times people will define addiction as the loss of control, the loss of agency. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, let me just attend a meeting, because I know social support is imperative and social support is amazing. And wow, that perspective, that insight can steer you away from a long life of creating more pain and hurt for yourself that you otherwise didn't need to create. So, in closing, notice any compulsive behaviors you have and get yourself a direct experience of seeing the most negative manifestations of that compulsive behavior by attending an AA meeting or whatever, whether it's Smart Recovery or some sort of other addiction meeting, and just to give yourself some perspective. And I can assure you that it will provide some really good food for thought for yourself and some valuable moments of sparks for self-reflection. So with that, thank you for watching. If you found this video interesting, valuable, please share it, like the video, leave me a comment on what you thought and what this sparked within you. And with that, thank you for watching.